Hi, everybody. So in this video, we're just going to go through week 7 and everything we're doing for this week. So the two focuses for this week is just going over thesis statements real quick. So it should be review. You've probably gone over them before in previous classes. So just wanting to make sure we hit them and get you some feedback on them before our first essay. And then also, we're going to start talking about the 3 different types of arguments. So in this class, you're going to write 4 essays. You have your final term paper, which we will spend the last 3 weeks of the class working on. Before that term paper, we're going to write 3 micro themes, so 3 smaller essays. Each of those essays is going to be a different type of argument. So there's Aristotelian, Rogerian. We're going to go over those 3 different types, and you'll write an essay aligned with that type. So this week, I'm introducing you to what those 3 types are in a very broad way so you understand the terms. You've seen it before. So then next week, when we write our first micro theme essay, you're at least semi-familiar with it, and then we'll go more in depth with the type as we assign each micro theme. So going through, the first link is just going to go over what a thesis statement is, what a good thesis statement looks like. The first link is going to take you to a website that gives you 25 examples of good thesis statements if you want to look at some examples. The second link is some slides that I made about how to write a good thesis, the 4 shoulds of a thesis statement. So how you can check and review your own thesis statement writing. And then I give you some more examples of different ones that I've had in past student writing when you're writing a thesis statement. Along with the 2 digital resources on thesis statements, there's also this little video here from YouTube that goes over how to write a thesis statement, an argumentative thesis statement again. So if you want that video as well, you have those 2 resources on writing thesis statements. And then once you've gone through the resources, you've taken notes. Again, if you're keeping like a cheat sheet with you that you can reference, I'd be adding anything to your cheat sheet that you want. Then you're going to do the thesis discussion. And this is where you're going to practice writing a thesis statement. So this doesn't have to be a thesis statement you're going to write for any future paper, but I want you to practice writing an argumentative thesis statement so that I can give you feedback on just that thesis statement before we go into big papers here pretty soon. So I want you to choose whatever topic you want and then write a thesis statement. So just the 1, maybe 2 sentences. Remember, a thesis statement's short, 1-2 sentences max. If you can't think of any ideas, I tried to give you some potential sample topics that you could use to write your thesis statement on. These are common topics I've seen a lot of papers or argumentative essays written about, but you can do whatever topic you want. I just want to see you write an argumentative thesis statement. Okay? So that's the first half of this week is thesis statements. So it should be pretty easy review. The second half of this week is where you're probably going to get a lot of new information. So if you click on types of argument identified, this is where I explain what those 3 types of arguments are. So there's the Ptolemaic, Rogerian, and the classical or Aristotelian. Classical Aristotelian, it's the same thing, it's just people call it different things. Okay? But it means the same thing if you're looking it up. Next week when I assign your first micro theme, the first micro theme is going to be over the classical or Aristotelian style of argument. It's probably the most common that we see as teachers assigning them, or even that students write, typically. The most common required one within there. So I'm going to have some lecture videos posted next week, as that is our focus for next week. It will be the classical one. For this week, I just want you to start to introduce yourself to all 3. So for all 3 sources, for all 3 arguments, I gave you 3 sources. So there's a Purdue OWL source for each one that goes a brief overview into what it is, what is required of it. So what is the basis of this style of argument? And then I also gave a PDF for each one as well that kind of goes into some more visuals and some more like actual notes into how you would set it up. And then each one I also have an example essay as well. And then the example essay, once it loads, there's comments on the side of it. So I gave comments on why you would see this in this style of argument. So it's not just like graded comments. These are comments that you want to add to and look note-wise, how does it fit with that style of argument within there, okay? So you have those 3 resources for each style of argument. So I want you to go through and peruse each one and take some notes. Make sure you are making cheat sheet note sheets for each style of argument because you're going to have to write for each one, okay? We're going to add to your cheat sheet note sheets as we assign them, but we're starting them this week. So you're going through and taking notes on those 3 different types of arguments, okay? Once you've done that, then what you're doing is choosing one of those types, okay? I suggest choosing the type you're the least familiar with, because it's probably going to be the one that you will struggle with the most when we actually go into writing the essay, right? So I want you to choose the one that either you're the least familiar with, is what I highly suggest anyway. And then you're going to write a summary of what that argument is. Okay, so on this discussion board, we are creating a class-wide study set of all these types of arguments, is what we're doing. So that way, later on down the road, if you have a question, you can't quite remember how to do it, instead of having to go through 5 different websites to find the answer, you can come back to this discussion board, and one of your classmates or you would have had a summary of that type of argument, and you have the notes set up for it. Okay, and then I'll be coming in if there's any confusions in your post or anything that I want to add to it. I'll be commenting on there as well. So you'll have my comments in there as part of this cheat sheet discussion board that we can reference back to. Okay. So you're using the 3 sources that I gave you over whatever type of argument that you're choosing for this discussion, and you're writing a summary of what that argument is, what pertains to it, how you would write an essay, what you would expect when you read an essay in that type of argument. Okay. So focus for this week again. Thesis statements, again, should be kind of easy. It should be review for most of us. And then it's types of arguments. And that's where the new information is coming into play, are the types of arguments. Okay. And what I would also do is, since I can guarantee next week we're writing our first micro theme, if you are slightly behind on anything, remember there's a 1 week late policy for everything we do. Okay, until we get to the very last week of school, then there isn't an additional week that you can turn things in. If you were behind on anything, okay, that you can still turn in late. So you can't turn in stuff late from week 1. You've passed that point. But if you're behind on other things, or you need to go back and review anything, this is the time to do so, because next week we're going to hit the ground running and do our first essay. Okay, so we've spent the first half of this semester reviewing all the necessary information and setting up our note sheets and making sure you have all these resources available to you, ready to write a paper. So the next week we are going to hit the ground running hardcore, writing our first micro theme essay. Okay. So if you have any questions whatsoever, whether it's about information from this week or any of the previous weeks, please email me, let me know. I will expand on it. I'll give more examples. But you want to make sure you're set up for success. So next week when we get into essay writing, you have everything that you could possibly need to be successful with that. Okay. So as you're working, as always, let me know if you need anything, but have a wonderful week, everybody.